Hey guys, welcome back to BackPocketGameReviews, and today we're going to talk about my PlayStation E3 predictions. So, I kind of waited a little bit to do this, because there was a little bit of a rumor going around on the internet, and I kind of wanted to do some research on it and flesh it out, and really be able to give what my opinion is specifically on this rumor. So, we're going to start with that. This is what we're going to enter with. Supposedly, there was a rumor going around that Sony was going to make a new handheld. That handheld was going to be in light of, like, the Switch, where it was a tablet with, like, controller-like attachments on the side. I don't think that's happening. I couldn't see them doing that. I wouldn't be astonished if they announced a new handheld, but I don't think they would blatantly copy Nintendo's game plan, because that would look pretty bad on them. You don't want to copy your competitor one-to-one. You want to try to show some form of innovation other than what your competitor's showing. It's just like with the Vita. I never thought the Vita was a bad piece of hardware. I thought Sony's support of the Vita was pretty poor, which Sony tends to not overwhelmingly support their handhelds. Example, the PSP and the PlayStation Vita. Now, the PSP did get a little more support from Sony, and I'm not saying that they didn't put out good games for both. I'm just saying they kind of brushed both under the rug way earlier than they should, and PSP found a huge following with the homebrew market. So if they were to announce a new handheld, I think it would keep more with their trend of handhelds than trying to just blatantly copy the Nintendo Switch. I could be wrong, but personal opinion and my insight on this is I don't believe that's going to be their big announcement. I wouldn't be shocked if Sony announces some new form of hardware like a PS4 Pro Plus, but I really don't foresee it releasing this year. And I think if it did release this year, that would look really bad on Sony because the PlayStation 4 Pro didn't come out all that long ago. I would think that that would probably see a holiday 2018 release if they do something along those lines. Now we're going to talk about games, and this is the instance where I think Sony is going to have the hardest time at E3, mostly because Microsoft hasn't really unveiled what they've got going on game-wise. I mean, there's a couple of titles that we obviously know are going to get talked about, such as Sea of Thieves or Crackdown. Crackdown will probably get mentioned by Microsoft. But Sony has kind of already shown a full deck of cards here. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't have room for some form of innovation or a surprise for everyone, but I mean, they've got The Last of Us 2, which is easily probably going to be the biggest game that they're going to show off at E3. And obviously, we only got a teaser last time, so this time I think we're going to get a full gameplay trailer, and obviously Naughty Dog's pretty tied up with that, and they've also got the expansion right now about to release for Uncharted 4. It might already actually be out, but there's an expansion where you don't actually play as Nathan Drake, and it's being released as like a standalone game, sort of in light of like how Wolfenstein: The New Order and The Old Blood kind of did, where it's kind of an expansion, but not. It's kind of hard to explain, but it will be a standalone title for those of you who have not picked up Uncharted 4 yet, which is a huge mistake if you own a PlayStation. That was a big reason why I picked one up. So obviously I think Naughty Dog's hands are going to be pretty full. I don't think you're going to have any surprises out of Naughty Dog's. We're going to talk about things I think will happen and things I would like to happen. Obviously, things I would like to happen probably won't happen. Obviously, Insomniac Games has not put out a game outside of Ratchet & Clank in a little bit, so I think we're probably going to see something out of Insomniac Games, and I wouldn't be shocked if it were a new series into the Resistance franchise. And the reason why I'm saying Resistance is Sony's kind of lacking that exclusive first-person shooter game. Killzone really missed the mark and wasn't very well received by critics or really even the PlayStation community. And I mean, I even thought it was pretty rough, and I'm a pretty decent Killzone fan. I loved 2 and 3. I thought Shadowfall fell a little flat. So I think Sony's going to allow Insomniac to probably do a new Resistance title. I wouldn't be too shocked by that unless Microsoft were to steal them away to do, what is it called? Sunset Overdrive 2, which was also a really good game. Insomniac does make pretty decent games. Resistance isn't one of Sony's biggest franchises. The third one fell very flat with fans, but I wouldn't be shocked if they did some form of a reboot of the series. Because, I mean, the overall story to that series is actually really good. So it's kind of hard to say how they're going to go about that. But that's what I think Insomniac is currently working on. And obviously, we know they're going to show off the new God of War a little more, which we got a pretty decent little gameplay trailer of at E3 last year. So I think we'll probably see more of the new God of War at this E3. I feel that makes the most sense. I would probably expect them to give the release date as well, which I'm going to assume they're going to shoot for this holiday. I also assume The Last of Us will probably shoot for this holiday, so they might bump God of War up. I could see one probably being late fall and one probably being towards the holiday season, such as like a November release. But you always got to be careful when you do a November release, because that's like when all of the big meaty games typically are getting ready to come out. So sometimes that can be a really tough time of year to release a game. Now, obviously, Sony's probably going to have more up their sleeves. And another thing I think that is very possible to happen is I wouldn't be shocked if you get a Bloodborne 2. Obviously, the developer of Dark Souls has stated that they're kind of done with Dark Souls for the time being, at least the immediate time being. So if Bloodborne 2 were to come up, I wouldn't be too shocked. Or if they were to be working on a new exclusive game to Sony, I really couldn't see them doing an exclusive for Microsoft. But I said the same thing about Insomniac, and that happened. So that one's kind of hard to say, but I wouldn't be shocked if you see a Bloodborne 2 coming during E3. Now, things I would really like to happen, like personally, I would love to see a Jak and Daxter collection. And I mean like a fully revamped HD textures made from the ground up Jak and Daxter collection. Obviously, as I said, Naughty Dog has their hands full, but when you're doing a remake or a revamp like that, Naughty Dog doesn't necessarily have to be the one to do that and still keep the game as quality. Plus, I don't think they would split Naughty Dog's attentions up as much as what they currently are, because they are working on two things right now. So that's one prediction there. I think you're going to get a Red Dead Redemption 2 trailer at E3, and I think it'll be during Sony's presser. A lot of people are saying they think Sony is going to have exclusive Red Dead content. I don't see that happening. Rockstar doesn't normally do exclusivity deals. But I mean, you know, I'm not Rockstar nor Sony, so I can't really give you 100% if that's going to happen or not. But I strongly expect to never see Rockstar do any kind of exclusivity deal. I think that would only hinder them more than help them. I would like to see more PSVR titles announced. And I mean, it's not that there aren't any good PlayStation VR titles. I would like to see them show more commitment towards PlayStation VR. And I mean on Sony's end. Not just third-party developers, but I would like to see Sony make an original experience for the PlayStation VR that maybe takes place in the Uncharted universe or in one of the expansive universes that they own. I think that would be an awesome idea, and I can't guarantee you that Sony is going to spend much time talking about PlayStation VR. But if they do kind of ignore PlayStation VR, I would be extremely hesitant to buy one. Not that I wasn't already kind of hesitant to buy one, but I would be even more extremely hesitant to buy one if Sony just doesn't talk about it. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed Sony doesn't really mention the Vita anymore at E3 conferences. The Vita's just kind of off to the side. And the Vita has thankfully found huge following within the indie developer community. So they do get a lot of big indie titles and a lot of JRPGs because it does have a huge amount of success in Japan. I would like to see Sony also revamp PlayStation Now to be more competitive with Xbox Game Pass. PlayStation Now kind of requires you to stream the game, so you don't download it to your system. Whereas Xbox's Game Pass allows you to download it to your system. So if you don't necessarily have the network connection to be able to play a game over the actual network itself, where it's completely streaming rather than using the console's power, PlayStation Now is really hard to get behind, mostly because of that. And especially with it being $20 a month. And there's not a lot of PlayStation 4 stuff on PS Now, from what I hear. I haven't been on there. From what I hear, it's mostly all PS3 stuff, whereas Xbox Game Pass is going to try to be an even mixture of both. So, hard to say if Sony will even talk about PlayStation Now, because from what I hear, their support for that is also starting to get a little iffy. They did discontinue the Windows version of it, from what I was told, and there was a couple other versions of it as well. I believe it was the PlayStation Vita one that they were discontinuing as well. So I'm excited to see what Sony is going to talk about and how this E3 is going to go. I just feel Sony has kind of shown the bulk of their cards, whereas Microsoft and Nintendo have been a little more quiet and zip-lipped about it. So it'll be really interesting to see how this all plays out. I think Sony is going to have the biggest task with overcoming everything, mostly because everything's pretty much already been revealed for them. At this point, they're just showing you more of it. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Sony just has some huge exclusive games they're sitting on that I know nothing about. But again, it'll be an interesting E3, which I'm going to cover for you guys. I'll probably live stream during bits and pieces of it, and then I'll probably also do videos after each event, because I took some time off of work for E3. So, yeah, that's how dedicated I am to gaming. I took time off of work for E3. But guys, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. I really need them thumbs up. Also, if you haven't already, you can click that subscribe button and that little notification bell. Sometimes it'll let you know when I have new content coming up, and other times it just goes, yeah, no, you get nothing. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll have plenty more content coming for you soon, and we'll see you around.